All right. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Doctor's Orders Workshop. My name is Dr. Theo Fowles, and we are excited to get together and have a little bit of conversation. Several of us are looking into uh, becoming consultants and stepping out of the rat race and into our own races and making our own money outside of our various fields. But a little bit of background on myself. I'm a first generation college student. Did my undergrad at the University of Southern California. Got my master's in teaching at Pace University in New York. Focused predominantly on the combinations of film and English and how we create our own stories. And that led me to pursue my doctorate right back at USC, where I looked at how former foster youth use social media to navigate higher ed spaces. And so now I'm working at a cultural center on campus, making sure that our stories are being told. But I want to move far and wide, and I see that this brother that is here with me today is doing just that. And so I want to give him a chance to introduce himself as well.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Great to be here. Thank you, Theo, again, for having me on and talking about today's topic. Dr. Tierney Bates, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, born and raised there, undergraduate at the University of Akron, got my master's degree in higher ed there as well. Got my MBA from Bryan College and my doctorate in educational leadership from Spalding University. Been in the field of higher education now, going on almost 18 years. Time flies in that regards. But for different capacities, worked in diversity inclusion. That's probably my wheelhouse and niche. But I've worked in fundraising, student affairs, and a little bit of dabbing in enrollment management as well. So, but mostly been on the student affairs side of higher education.
Cool. So my name is Jaqui Thomas. I am originally from LA, South Central, right by Inglewood. My background is in student affairs, but I also have a counseling background and a huge interest in investing and assessment. So I like numbers. I'm a very quantitative person. So right now I am working on reading this book called How to Start a Business for Dummies. And I am looking forward to hopefully starting consulting around investing. So how does someone know that they should be a consultant?
Great question. I would say, first of all, it's some inner soul searching, right? It's a matter of knowing what is it that you want to be known for, as I tell people. So as a consultant, you're your own personal brand, right? Especially in this field of higher education. So people we know by names, we know by what they bring, we know by what they have created from a marketing standpoint as well, right? I would say you have to have some competency in a specific niche or niches. So a prime example is when I first realized that I wanted to do it, it was because I have carved out this niche around fundraising and specifically fundraising around diversity initiatives. Like I said before, I did diversity and inclusion and social justice work, been the director of a culture center, worked in a couple other culture centers. And I realized I was always in these spaces and I was always asking for money, right? And so I was raising money because I was in these spaces where, in student affairs, they don't give multicultural affairs no money. And I started realizing that when I got tapped to go over and work with advancement to fundraise for diversity initiatives with alums and all this other stuff, it was a niche that I realized that when I looked at the field, one, there wasn't a lot of people of color in advancement. Two, identity-based fundraising is huge right now. It's probably the fastest growing place. And if you look at PWIs and some of the institutions, they have a large amount of alums of color, and they don't know what to do with them. They don't, when it came to philanthropy, it was the typical white guy, rich, started a business, we're going to him. The first gift I landed was actually an African-American alum who was a rich guy himself, but nobody ever talked to him. So, of course, the white folks go to him, talk to him, and he's like, oh, okay. But when they bring me in, it was a different lens for me to say, hey, these are needs, these are things that are going on for our students. What was your experience like? And how can you help students? Long story short, I realized then, after doing that, and I realized hey, and I landed a couple more gifts around our alums of color and all this other stuff. Like, this is a space nobody's in, and this is a space nobody's talking about. as the population changes in our country and is growing, I did the data. 80% of all African Americans get to the church. So, but we have ways to give, and people just need to be educated. So I started going around doing this whole education piece on how do you give. You give planned giving, you give annual giving, $2 here, how to use technology in giving. And I carved it and did it towards people of color in schools. So I started working with multicultural centers, different areas, and that's where I got my first consulting job. I realized I was on to something and was like, okay, let me keep doing this. And then I read the book, Speak and Grow Rich. I think the book Dr. Thomas just mentioned as well. Those type of things started coming in my mind like, okay, well, I need to form a business separate from what I do. I need to form a brand separate from what I do around that. And so I need to be in spaces, social media, everything I do, and talk up about what I do as well. And then use your network. So I know Theo just mentioned the crew getting together and having this support weekend. You have to use that circle of influence to expand. I've been in the field almost 18 years, and I realized I'm literally 2 degrees separation from knowing a lot, especially people of color, whether it's at HBC or PWI, in this field. So how do you reach out to those individuals as you build relationships, as you go to a campus and consult and say, hey, do you know anybody who might need my services, and go from there. And so as that happens, you also got to realize that when you do some consulting, sometimes you got to do some stuff for free. Because when I read Speak and Grow Rich, it said speak as much as you can, as often as you can, because then you hone your skill set. You hone what you can talk about. So now I've done it so long that I can go in off the cuff and talk about diversity fundraising, or I can go in off the cuff and talk about leadership development for African American students, because I've done it so well and done it so long. So you guys know you've done things for free. You've met with students. You've done presentations, all that stuff. Keep doing that. But as you start building that brand, you got to develop everything around you, your marketing strategy, your outreach strategy, and then you'll land that first contract. What you also want to do is research who else is doing what you do. So what you create is a menu as well. So when I first started doing fundraising diversity, it was one of those things saying, okay, this is great, but now I need to keep other niches, because as you start getting paid for gigs, you're excited about that, and you start building your brand, but you want to say, what else could I offer that institution, or what else can I offer as an option?
Right. Could you talk a little bit more about how you went about separating your full-time position?
Oh yeah,
and your consulting business?
Separating the full-time job. So so I'll give you. I'm very direct and very straight. There's haters, right? Because in my role, I've had people hit me up like, well, you're the assistant vice chancellor. We see that you're out here speaking and da-da-da. I tell people, 1, it's on my dime. 2, it's on my time. And 3, most of the times I'm doing stuff, it's on the weekends. And if it's during the work week, of course, I'm taking vacation, leave time, whatever like that. So, when I take my vacation time, I ain't got to tell you what I do from that perspective. But what I carved out is to spend as much time a week on my craft too, right? So I'm going to carve out 6-7 hours a week, either in the evening or over the weekend, to say, let me follow up on these leads. Let me talk to this organization or this in school, make sure, they have all my materials, they understand what we're trying to do, getting MOUs out, or getting out RFPs, right? So when somebody's looking for somebody, are you competitive? But to separate yourself from your day job is, I would say, be careful. You're not using any of your work-related information. Now, your title and role is one thing, because that's what you do. I mean, you put it on LinkedIn, business cards. When I say you're not using like your computers, you're not using paper or printing stuff off of the office, you just don't want to get caught up in that, because I've seen people get caught up in that, right? So I like my benefits at the job, you know what I'm saying? But I like the freedom also to say I can do this on the side, because I'm still in my niche area working within higher education, but I have the freedom to go and do these things when I can and get paid for them on that side. And then it's a matter of your forms, right? So as you're reading that book, what forms do you have? Are you making sure your contracts are looked at by a lawyer? Are you making sure whatever the rider is or whatever you're getting from the organization, that you're doing the deliverables and it's all in that contract as well? Because you don't want to have to go to court for somebody to pay you your money. And then you want somebody to renege on the contract as well. So understanding that portion also is key and important as well. But definitely you have to separate your day job. But the bigger you get, the more, and it gets to a point actually that depending upon your institution, they'll celebrate you.
Can you talk about how someone should go about finding their medium for consulting? So whether it's like motivational speaking or like workshops.
So for me, like I said, I think it was this wheelhouse with diversity that I was like, I really want to, focus on this. And it was a matter of me also working with some companies. So got invited to sit on some boards and be involved with some companies. And I was being this diversity expert for them. And I started realizing like, I need to get paid for this because my time is important, right, to me. So for me, it was the diversity lens, right? And then I realized that leadership was important to me. Also, African-American student success was important to me, especially working at PWIs. So for me, those three things became my wheelhouse, right? So those are things I started saying when I read the book, Speak and Grow Rich. Those are the things I'm going to speak about the most. I'm going to post stuff about it on my social media. I'm going to write about it. I'm going to do everything I can in that wheelhouse of those options to make sure I get out there. I'm going to use my contacts and everything like that. So there's a lot of people that have motivational speaking, right? What is it that makes you different is what you have to think about. So I'll give my boy E.T. Y'all know Eric Thomas. Eric Thomas is raw and in your face. You go to see Eric Thomas, hey, you ain't hungry, you know what I'm saying? You got to sacrifice. He's yelling at people and everything like that. People thrive off that, though, right? So you also are crafting how you present. Because I remember seeing a diversity speaker come, and she was the most boring speaker. Now, I know we paid her like $5,000 to come talk. It was 2 hours until she said something of substance, because we were supposed to be there for 4 hours. And I was like, oh, I can actually pay attention now because she's talking about something that's caught my attention. So that's another thing. Learning the length of what you talk about, not just doing run-ons when you talk. Like it's a craft. Also being able to address things on the fly, because you're going to have questions thrown at you, all this other stuff, and really doing that wheelhouse. But if it's motivational speaking, be that great motivational speaker. Record yourself. Put yourself in front of the mirror. So I actually did this. I would put myself in front of the mirror, and I would give certain taglines, certain things I would want to say. And I know I'm talking to myself, but I want to craft off how I'm saying it. Am I talking too fast? Are people understanding what I'm saying? And would it give a quick pop for people to understand, like, Because you know how it is. If you're around people of color, we give you that, okay, type deal. Nod your head, say amen, all that other great stuff. So you start crafting that a little bit, and you start working with that.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit more about how you structure your time as a consultant? I know you say you take away a few hours and you plan out things. Can you kind of delve a little bit more into what those structures look like?
Yeah. So for me, first would be looking at my marketing. So I'm always looking at my marketing strategy, right? We're in a society nowadays with social media and different marketing strategies, and you got to see to yourself, how many times are you out there? Plugging your marketing, putting yourself in front of people, having the conversations, going to conference. So when I go to conference, I'm making sure that when I walk in that room, I'm strategically looking like, okay, who's in this room? Who's the decision maker that I can have a conversation with? Or who's in this room? It might just be not have to be a decision maker, but knows who the decision makers are. It's a numbers game too, right? The more people you talk to, the more people you put out your information to, the more bites you're going to get from that perspective. But you really have to hone that craft of making sure your market strategy is first, and then looking at what areas of schools, right? So I go back to what people can afford and what you want to charge. Because I'm not going to sit up here and tell you like, hey, I would love a $25,000 speaking gig. I would love a $25,000 consulting gig. You know what I'm saying? The most has been 12. But at the end of the day, I said to myself, those 12s add up to 25. You know what I'm saying? So the more you're doing more, the more your name is out there, the more people want to draw into who you are and what you can do for them and help them at their institutions or wherever area you're going into.
How do you figure out your pricing when you get started?
So like I told you, I was like $1,200. Like, hey, $1,200? And they were like, oh, yeah, they jumped on that. So what do you feel your worth is, right? Is what I tell people. If you think you're worth $8,000 a day, charge $8,000 a day. What they're going to ask is, where are your references? Where have you been? You know what I'm saying? All that stuff. So when you go back to your marketing material, like I'm on developing my website right now, I'd be able to list the schools, the organizations, and the nonprofits and all the stuff that I've worked with and say, hey, I've worked with them, I've consulted with them and all this other stuff. So they have references and people they can go check with and say, hey, he's worked with these organizations, and they can call these folks up. So when you're looking at what you're going to charge, you have to think about it. How much time are you going to spend either consulting or spend with that time frame to get you to where you're going to get? So like I said, I started off at $1,200. Then I said, okay, I'm going to go to $1,500. And then I realized, like I said, still paying attention to what other people are making. I'm like, the people out here get like $5,000, $6,000. You know what I'm saying? And I know I'm not saying they ain't as good as me, but I'm like, ego hits you like, well, wait a minute, I'm just as good as them. I want to get that much too. But again, I'm just doing this on a part-time basis. So I'm not doing this as my main source of income. Now, it's different if you're doing it as your main source of income. And then I think you charge more. I realized I want to subsidize 50 to 60% of my income year to year to save. So the money I make from speaking and engagement actually goes to an account that I don't touch. For the simple fact, that is my cash. I talk about cash retirement money that I want to have. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing to have your 401k, but I want to be able to say, hey, I got $1 million cash and I got my 401k. And so I put all that money in that account. So I started off, I moved from 1,500 to 2,500 because I felt 2,500 was a sweet spot. And what I always do too is talk to organizations first to say, what is your budget? I don't give them my fee off the gate.
Okay. Hold on. Let me write it down.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Oh, we taking notes over here. I hope y'all have a pen and paper.
It is a craft, right? It's so.
Right. Okay. So I'm wondering if we can learn more about how you find clients. And I'm also interested, are you mostly marketing to higher education or maybe outside of higher ed too? And what does it look like if you do look for clients outside of higher ed?
Sure. So it started off obviously with higher ed, since that's my wheelhouse, that's where I work. And so that was the simplest thing. First thing I did was my network. I looked at who was in my network, who were decision makers in my network, and could bring me to campus. I started with my network first, and as you started with your network and I started speaking more and more, I used that in my marketing materials. So I would have comments, certain things from videos to send out to folks, and they would have, oh, okay, so you got this track record, you spoke over here, you spoke over there, and they can vouch for you. So then you say, hey, who else do you know who can use my services? And then if you're looking outside of it, what happened for me outside of consulting to help outside of higher ed was, again, going back to the network and me sitting on some boards. So as I mentioned before, when I was at the University of Knoxville, I was on 5 community boards there. Big, heavy boards. United Way. I was the youngest on United Way. Tennessee Theater Board. So when I'm on these boards, you start realizing like, oh, okay, now I ain't rich as half these folks on these boards, but some of these boards need the people of color. They need that influence. They want to be diverse. That's your access then to ask for certain things. That's your access to use your platform. So in that space, I'd be like, hey, I would love to come talk to your nonprofit organization or your company, work with your company on some of your diversity initiatives. And so they build a network, right? And that network then says, oh, let me use you for this. Oh, by the way, Terry, we're going to sponsor you for this. And all this other stuff. And then all before you know it, you use that to your advantage. Like, hey, by the way, can you help me get in with this company over here? Or do you know the HR person over there? Or the decision maker over in diversity and inclusion over there? And can you send them the information? And before you know it, people know if you do good work, they'll spread your name and you'll get contacted. Sitting on those boards was key and critical for me. One, I learned a lot about board management, learned about being on a board, period, the fiduciary responsibilities, carrying the water for the organization. And so while I was carrying the water for the organization, I was carrying the water not for me, but for people of color. And so I realized I was able to also open that door and say, hey, Dr. Thomas is somebody needs to sit on this board next. You know what I'm saying? Because, my board term is going to be up and I know you want to replace somebody, so I'm going to give you 3 nominations. And these are 3 you need. And so then I'm giving access to others like yourselves to come to that table, sit at the table, and do the same thing.
Makes sense.
I got a follow-up question.
Go ahead. Follow up.
And do you have repeat clients? And how do you nurture those relationships?
So repeat clients is like anything else, like any business. You want to make sure that you don't repeat too much, because whatever you're talking about changes with time. But repeat business is more or less, what new things are you coming to campus to talk about? And then to keep that relationship, what you got to do is, who's the decision maker and who's under that decision maker? Because people come and go. So whoever the decision maker is, you want to make sure you build a great relationship with them, but also the people underneath them, for the simple fact you want to have that conversation. If that person leaves, who steps up into that leadership role and they don't forget about you? And so, again, it's a matter of, it's holiday time, right? Christmas cards, electronically, hey, just want to say thank you again. It was great. Pleasure being on your campus 6 months ago. Don't forget me in 2019. It's a matter of picking up the phone. I really think what we're missing nowadays is true, the personal, one-on-one. Hey, what's going on? It's Tierney. Hey, what's going on? Hey, just want to call and say happy holidays to you. hope all is well. You know, we're coming up on the spring term, next fall. You know, these are some things I'm going to be talking about different than when I was at your last conference, or these are some things I'm going to be doing different around consulting next year. We'd love to, send you, what I'm saying, an RFP or some information on it, and just stay in contact with you. Really, the repeat business is making sure that you keep the constant relationship, building a relationship, and sometimes you do something for free. Just being honest with you. So, again, it's about building relationships in a lot of different ways. And people, if they see you do good work, they know you good work, and they'll give you repeat business.
Awesome. So I always like to play a little devil's advocate. So have you seen others be unsuccessful in consulting? And what were some of their pitfalls or some things that you noticed that made things not work out as smoothly as it could have?
So I'm going to give you this. That's actually a great question. So most recently, I put out that I want to probably bring somebody into my campus on diversity training. I put it out on social media, different platforms, group meetings, all this other stuff. I had a ton of people hit me up. I asked for an RFP. I was like, please send me things. What people did not do first was ask the question of, what is it that you want me to talk on? What are the learning outcomes? And what is your budget, right? So I get these proposals, and I'm looking at them, and they're great. And I'm like, oh, okay, he wants to charge me $8,000, but he never asked me for my budget. You know what I'm saying? He wants to charge me and do 3 days, but he never asked me how many days I need him.
So what are some tools, some resources, services, or platforms that you use to enhance your consulting business and how to create impact?
That's a great question. So right now, I'm actually hiring a brandpreneur. So there's people out here that actually you pay to build your brand. You need a one-sheeter. You need some kind of marketing materials, little handbills, whatever like that you can send to folks, the one-sheeter. Website is what, like I said, I'm developing right now. Your social media presence. Mine is T-Bates 1914 on everything. And then you need people who will give references. So get a quote from somebody. Oh, you know what I'm saying? Dr. Thomas came, she spoke, killed it, and put their name. You know what I'm saying? It was Tierney Bates, North Carolina Central. Man, Dr. Thomas was here, killed it. At the same time, they asked him for that permission and say, hey, this will go on my marketing materials, and then get videos. Hey, this is Tierney Bates. I just heard Theo Fowles. It was amazing. It was awesome. If you don't know him, you need to bring him to your campus. That's all you need. And you get multiple one of those because people know you. There it is. So that helps you with your brand as well. So the more I can put stuff out in diverse or different publications, that helps me too from a scholarly standpoint.
How do you assess your consulting impact? So is there feedback that you're expecting from your clients, and kind of talk about that assessment piece? You always notice about numbers.
Yeah. This is that field, right? Harriet? So do a pre and post survey. So you can always do a pre and post survey with whoever you go to. If it's speaking, motivational, you can do a pre and post. If you're consulting, what you want to do is it's going to be based upon your measurables, right? So if you have certain measurables that's actually in the contract and the proposal, then when are you delivering those measurables? Is it a report? Is it something metric-wise that you guys are saying, hey, we're surveying 100 faculty. Were we able to get 100 faculty in that survey? Yes. You know what I'm saying? So that's a little different when you talk about consulting versus speaking, because consulting is looking at numbers, it's looking at data, it's breaking certain things down, and because you're going to make an informed decision, right? Especially when we talk about diversity, social justice, and equity things. So you're going to make a decision based upon this report that we've done over the last 6 months with you. These are the things that we're seeing that you should go in the directions you should go within your diversity, equity space. On the speaking side, it's going to be more or less pre and post survey, get folks to tweet, get folks to post about you, Instagram, all the other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because you put out there, hey, hashtag follow such and such, and everybody do it. So when you go to the first speaking gig, you just do that. Hey, this is my social media, follow me. You know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, right now, everybody pull out their phone. All right, we all gonna post. Go to your spot right now, post. Hey, just heard such and such. We're gonna keep that trending. That's a way to get you out there even more from that perspective as well. And so then people are like, oh, okay, damn, Tierney's trending. Oh, damn, Theo's trending. Jackie's trending right now. Who these folks? You know what I'm saying? And use that to your advantage in a lot of different ways and spaces. Because the brand is you.
Say that one more time.
The brand is you.
There we go.
When people pay you to come speak, consult, they're paying you. They're paying you as the brand. You're saying you can deliver X, Y, and Z. You have a message. You have something that's going to either inspire, engage, you know what I'm saying, make people think, all the other great stuff. And they're paying you for that. So you have to deliver. So if you want to get started in the game, you need to think about who's in your network and then develop your marketing strategy of who you need to tap into, who will give you those first few shots in higher education, even out of higher education. Because you have a circle of influence within the field, but you also have a circle of influence outside of the field. And so how can those people get you in spaces and places to have these conversations? And then doing your homework, like I said before, what would you charge by the hour? What would you charge for an overall fee? You know what I'm saying? Do you have a headshot? You know, people always ask, you got a headshot? I got it on my phone. When you want me to send it to you? So again, you're always prepared. I think what people don't realize is timing is everything. And for me, I realized early on, I was like, look, I don't want to be caught where they say, hey, I need your bio, or I need a headshot, I need such from you. And I like, oh, when I get back to the office or when I get home tonight, you know what I'm saying? I got to log on to my computer to do all that. I put everything on my phone, like I can shoot it to you right now when you need it. You know what I'm saying? Give me your cell phone and email, I'll send it to you. And so I started thinking about that as well, because while you have people captured in an audience, you know what I'm saying, you're staying on their mind. I mean, if you're in higher education, it is a relationship field, and people build strong, long-term, you know, whether it's for a reason, season, or a lifetime, relationships in this field. And 9 out of 10, the things that you will do, the jobs you'll get, the consulting gigs, the speaking gigs will be based upon relationships. Write out your plan. What do you want to do for 2019, 2020? You know, when I did mine, it was for 3 years. I said, like I told you before, I just wanted to make 10 grand. I was cool. I make 10 grand this year. That's my vacation money, and I can do this. And then I realized, hey, I can make more than 10 grand. And so you start challenging yourself. You start building that rapport. You start building what you can do. Again, whatever help you guys need, I'm here to help. You know, I think the biggest thing is that we need more things, more platforms like this to have conversations among ourselves, because everybody, has an opportunity to do great things.
Awesome. So I wanted to give some next steps in terms of what's going to happen next. So from this video, I'll send out an email to everybody that participated today, just to get some of that feedback and follow up, see how you like the platform, and questions that you might not have been able to ask or that you thought of later. We can add those to the docket as well. I'll do some editing of the video footage, so that way it's nice and clean, and everybody can get a copy to a link or a download from that. And then we'll also let you know when the next conversation series. So with that, I'm going to end the recording, but I'll invite everybody to stay on just to converse and fellowship as well. Okay.